Hi, I'm Candy Gourlay, your guest time tunneler this week. I am the author of this book, this book, this book, this book, this book, and this book, Ferdinand Magellan. It's part of the first name series of comics biographies about notable people. Tom Knight drew all the pictures and I wrote all the words. Where I grew up in the Philippines, everybody knows who Ferdinand Magellan is. He is famous for discovering the Philippines. Is it possible to discover a place occupied by thousands and thousands of people? Anyway, Magellan sailed from Spain across the Atlantic Ocean to Brazil and then down the coast until he discovered what we now call the Strait of Magellan. And through the strait, he found the biggest ocean in the world. At the time, we called it the Sea of Magellan. Today, though, we now know it as the Pacific Ocean. Many terrible things happened to him on the way. It was 1521 and ships and navigation tools were primitive. They had no fridges to keep their food fresh. Worse still, his men hated him. Some attacked him. One of his ships turned around and sailed away. By the time they got to the Pacific, they were suffering from sickness and starvation. They didn't have a map. They didn't even know where they were going. Why would someone volunteer to go on such a terrible voyage? Here's why. Ketchup, French fries, pizza, curry, chocolate. None of these existed in Europe when Magellan was a kid. There were no tomatoes, no potatoes, no spices, no chocolate. Let me say that again. No chocolate. Can you even begin to imagine what that was like for young people? Rich people could buy spices, which were used for everything from deodorant to improving the flavor of food. Remember, there were no fridges, so meat was always slightly off. The spices came from faraway lands carried by Arab traders across the vast European and Asian continent. But then the great Ottoman Empire rose in the east. They blocked the trade with Europe, and Europeans had to find another way to get their spices. And then some ships began to improve. They could sail longer and longer distances. And some men who were a lot braver than they were clever began to venture out to explore the world beyond Europe. And when they came back, oh, the stories they told. They brought gold and strange new food. And when young Magellan was growing up, explorers were like rock stars, and he dreamed of becoming an explorer himself. In my book, I tell the story of how Magellan fought to become an explorer. His journey to the other side of the world was filled with adventure and crisis. He was the first European to sail the Pacific Ocean. There's a penguin named after him, the Magellanic penguin, and there are two dwarf galaxies that are now called the Magellanic Clouds. Mind you, this happened much later. Magellan never knew that these things were named after him. On his travels, Magellan acquired a boy as his slave, whom he named Enrique. When at last Magellan crossed the Pacific Ocean and landed in a group of islands teeming with people, which we now know as the Philippines, he was astonished to find that Enrique could speak their language. Because of Enrique, Magellan was able to talk to the islanders and even tried to convert them to his own religion. For the first time in his life, Magellan felt truly confident. Maybe that's why he offered to attack the enemy of one of the island kings, which was a disaster. Magellan was killed on the island of Mactan in a battle that he didn't even have to fight. Today, people say that he was the first man to sail all the way around the world. But he didn't. He never returned to Spain. But I wonder about his slave, Enrique. Why did Enrique speak the language of the island? Was he stolen from that island and then sold as a slave? If so, Then the day Enrique arrived in what we now know as the Philippines, he became the first man to circumnavigate the world.